Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Friday, the 30th of June, comes to you from Bermuda. And we start by looking at the dollar index, and we've seen really big moves down this week. That's showing up with this weekly candle, that's the big move there, and these several days. We are just seeing a recovery this morning, but it's been a bad week for the dollar, there's no question. We have this new downside target of 93. So that's a 2.7% downside, and we will get a downside target on this column as well, which will take us even lower still. And if we look at just where that target would be, 91, assuming this column logs, that's 4.6% downside. So we are just seeing the dollar really pulling right back. The key on this long-term chart is if we take out this 93.40 level, that would unwind this upside target. And when we see upside targets unwound, that's significant. Taking a look at the euro, we have this interesting situation where yesterday I talked about this chart needing to close at that level to unwind this target, and it has done that. So we actually have seen a downside target coming off the chart for the euro, and we're seeing here the weekly candle showing up, showing a move through the cloud long term, and daily we're seeing that move as well. So very significant. And here we see the 60-minute chart just falling away a little bit this morning, but we've this new upside target of 118.88, which is activated. That's 4.25%. So we're starting to see a re-rating of the euro and the dollar falling away. So it looks like a long-term trend change is underway. Japanese yen, we're seeing here. The yen has been weaker against the dollar. This is dollar strength, but just real recently the dollar, just yesterday, selling off again, so the yen strengthening. So the interesting thing is that the yen is overall still bullish. This is bearish dollar, bullish yen, but we are just starting to make that transition where the dollar is just starting to have the upper hand on the yen. Looking at the sterling chart, just sitting at this 130 level, didn't quite make it above the May high. On the daily chart we see that, and we're still bearish long term, of course, but we are seeing sterling improving as well. And if we look at the euro sterling rate, that's also up this morning, so we're just seeing euro recovering from those 7-month lows, but the downside targets are there hanging over sterling. And against the Swiss franc, much the same thing. Australian dollar, we're seeing here, we're seeing sterling strength again against the dollar, but we have seen a sterling weakness here where the Australian dollar has been stronger. So overall, we are just falling away a bit in the short term on the sterling, but we are still above the clouds, so sterling is looking strong against most currencies at the moment. The S&P 500 index had a really big fall yesterday. We see that back through the cloud. We're in bearish territory here. So we're bearish in the short term, still bullish medium and long term, but bearish territory. So that's significant. And we look at the Nasdaq, which is the one we've been really watching, and we saw new lows. The lows set on 9th and 15th, or 12th and 15th of June, taken out yesterday. We went as low as 5,600 on the Nasdaq 100 index. Downside targets are 52, 55, and 53.99. So that's 7 and 4% downside. So we are seeing now significant downside potential for the Nasdaq. We did recover to this level, but that is now that 56.50 level is becoming a really key line of support and resistance. We're just slightly above it at the moment. Really depends what we do today, but it's looking a bit more worrying for the Nasdaq this week. And we see that strong weekly candle here, the week falling away, and of course it really showing up in the 60-minute chart, so that's highly significant. Looking at the Dow, much the same thing, just falling through the cloud, and the Russell 2000 is holding up, the broader market holding up. So the good news is the breadth is quite good, but the bad news is that we are seeing these indices all starting to fall below the cloud in the short term. The Nasdaq recovering above that 56.50 level today on the Nasdaq 100 is pretty important, so keep an eye out for that. Looking at the S&P future, we see we're still bearish below the cloud, and the Nasdaq E-mini is bearish below the cloud, but currently trading up 0.34%, a third of a percent. So we may just see the Nasdaq put in a good day for the end of the week and negate that negative candle. just need to keep an eye out. FTSE's up slightly this morning, but bearish short term with these below the cloud and downside targets. So we still expect the UK market to sell off a bit. And the 250's up this morning, but only slightly really, and we wouldn't be surprised to see that fall away too. The DAX is looking bearish below the cloud, so we are seeing a sell-off there too. And the Nikkei is actually just coming back below the cloud on that slightly stronger yen maybe. On the Hang Seng, we're just holding on, but quite a mixed picture here. And on the Shanghai, we're seeing we are stronger here. Market up very slightly, but holding that short-term bullish trend. Looking at Sensex, that has had a bad week as well, and we're still bearish below the cloud there too. And the Australian market falling away very heavily overnight. So we are still bearish below the cloud in the short and medium term. Crude oil is up 0.2%, so we're seeing that short-term recovery just continuing, and WTI much the same, although we expect this to reverse sooner or later. The nat gas chart just falling back to that $3 level, starting to turn bearish in the short term, so that's quite significant. Taking a look at coffee, remember we talked about this during the week as a V-shaped recovery, up another 1.6% this morning, seeing these targets to the upside. Still bearish on all three charts, so a bit of a risky recovery. But interesting. And looking at wheat, we see wheat is just rocketing at the moment. Bullish on the short term, bullish on the medium term. We've still got a target of 528, so that's 6% upside. And we've got that 527.28 target here, 487 and 547. So we're seeing quite a lot of upside targets for wheat. This looks like a recovery that's really underway. So wheat looking stronger. Taking a look at corn, just to see how that balances with wheat, not looking as strong, but short term we are seeing a recovery here as well. Gold, just sitting in this 1240s zone, looking a little bit more bearish on the medium term chart, not quite through yet, but we do have this downside target of 1221 now activated, so gold is not looking quite as good as it was. And the same with silver, short term we've got a downside target of 2%, and just falling away there as well. US Treasury yields ticking up to 2.27%. And now we look at the tech stocks, and this is really what's driving markets at the moment. And we're seeing here Apple on the floor. Didn't make a new low like the Nasdaq, so that's slight divergence where Apple is holding its resistance while Nasdaq isn't. So that's a good sign. Google, though, looking very similar to Nasdaq, below the lows we saw in earlier this month and closing last night below those levels. So that's quite significant. Amazon not touching those lows, so not testing resistance the same way, and then Facebook holding up quite strongly there. So it's Google is really the stock that's mirroring the Nasdaq performance there, and Apple just slightly improving, and Microsoft also mirroring that Nasdaq performance. So quite significant. We need to just keep an eye on those stocks that are driving the market down. That's it for today. Until Monday, back in London. Happy charting. See you then.